You know, there's a story that often gets left out of the history books. It's the story of how, for African Americans, education was never, ever just about reading and writing. No, it was a defiant, dangerous, and absolutely relentless fight for freedom itself. Let's just dive right in with a voice from the past. This quote, it just captures it all, doesn't it? The profound, secret, and literally life-threatening desire for knowledge. You have to remember, this was a time when literacy was forbidden by law, so the simple act of learning to read, that was a radical act of rebellion. So back during the era of slavery, the denial of education was a deliberate weapon, a tool of oppression. Southern states had these brutal anti-literacy laws, and the punishment for teaching someone, or for learning yourself, could be severe physical violence. But here's the thing about trying to suppress a fundamental human desire. It often has the exact opposite effect. Instead of crushing the will to learn, it ignited what historians now call an unquenchable thirst for education. And this powerful drive, it became a cornerstone of the entire fight for liberation. Okay, so after the Civil War, everything changes. For the first time, this thirst for knowledge could finally be quenched out in the open. Let's take a look at how this energy started to build a whole new world, right from the ground up, during that hopeful period we call Reconstruction. The sheer scale of what happened next is just incredible. The federal government's Freedmen's Bureau alone opened over 1,000 schools all across the South. For the first time ever, formerly enslaved children had access to public education, and the response was absolutely massive. And this timeline, it shows you the incredible long-term vision they had. This wasn't just about learning the ABCs. We're talking about the founding of historic colleges and universities, many of which are still powerhouses today, creating generations of Black leaders, doctors, lawyers, and teachers. And here's a point that often gets missed. This was a political movement. Black politicians who could now finally vote and hold office were the ones who were instrumental in writing state-funded public education into Southern state constitutions for the first time in history, for everyone. But then, as Reconstruction came to an end and white supremacist governments clawed their way back into power, a whole new system of oppression rose up. The fight for education entered a new, brutal chapter, a battle against the systemic injustice of Jim Crow. Just look at these numbers. This chart lays out the harsh reality in black and white. States systematically and deliberately starved Black schools of resources. And it wasn't even close. In Georgia, for instance, the state was spending nearly 8 times more on a white child's education than on a Black child's. And yet, even with all of that stacked against them, the dream of education simply refused to die. Black communities basically taxed themselves twice, donating land, their own labor, their own money to build schools. And they found allies, like the philanthropist Julius Rosenwald, who helped fund the construction of thousands of these Rosenwald schools across the rural South. So you can see how this relentless multi-generational drive for education flows right into the civil rights movement of the 50s and 60s. This is the moment where the classroom literally transforms from a place of self-improvement into a powerful engine for political change. And if you want to understand this shift, you have to know about a woman named Septima Clark. She was a lifelong educator, but after 40 years of teaching, she was fired from her job in South Carolina just for being a member of the NAACP. But you know what? That act of injustice only made her fight harder. What she came up with was nothing short of genius. It was called the Citizenship School. It was this revolutionary program where she used everyday things, voter forms, catalogs, to teach adults to read and write. But here's the key. She directly linked literacy to their rights as citizens, to empowerment, and specifically to the power to register to vote. And the results of her work? Well, it was absolutely staggering. Her program spread like wildfire across the South. And by 1969, these citizenship schools were responsible for helping nearly 700,000 African Americans register to vote. Think about that. They fundamentally changed the entire political landscape. Okay, so we've looked at all this incredible history, but why does it matter so much today? Well, because understanding this struggle isn't just some academic exercise. It's about empowerment, and it shapes how we see ourselves and our world right now. And a big part of it starts with the very words we use to tell the story. Scholars like Professor Vereen Shepard are champions of an approach called decolonial history, which is all about challenging those old oppressive narratives. Now, this is so interesting because it really shows you the power of words. Look at the shift here, from slave to enslaved person. It might seem like a small change, but it's profound. It emphasizes that these were human beings who had an injustice done to them. Their condition didn't define who they were. This language puts the responsibility right back where it belongs. And this is why it's so vital. As Professor Shepard explains it, teaching history this way isn't just about facts and dates. It's about raising consciousness. It counters the shame that was used as a weapon for so long. It builds self-respect. It empowers people by showing that they come from a legacy, not just of suffering, but of incredible resilience, resistance, and greatness. The activist Marcus Garvey once said, "History is the landmark by which we are directed into the true course of life." This long, powerful struggle for education as freedom isn't just a story about the past. It's a landmark for all of us in the present. And it leaves us with a really critical question. What course is it setting for us right now?